I graduated college in 1974, and I was continuing my studies. I was a psychology pre-med major, and I had plans of being a doctor. My grandfather, who was a large real estate developer in Lakewood back in the probably late 1930s, 1940s, he passed away the year I graduated from college, and I ended up coming down to Lakewood to run the family business, which is Lakewood Country Club. Some of my friends at that time were interested in becoming police officers, and they took the police test and said, "Oh, come with us." And I said, "Okay." So sort of out of lark, I took the police test. They ended up failing the test, and I passed it, and I ended up being hired. And at that time, it was like a new, exciting thing for me. Not something I had ever planned to do. I was hired in February of 1981. I went to the police academy with 4 other Lakewood-born and raised guys, and when I graduated from the police academy, I was assigned to foot patrol in downtown Lakewood, Clifton Avenue, East 4th Street, which at that time, it was a fairly dangerous place. It was known for drug dealing and criminal activity, and I was a little apprehensive, but I enjoyed being on foot patrol. I enjoyed the contact with the people, and I stayed there for 5 years. The officers I came on with, requested to go to motorized patrol, but I really enjoyed walking the streets in downtown Lakewood. So ultimately, because of my expertise in firearms, I was made a firearms instructor, and then after 7.5 years, I got promoted to sergeant and put in charge of training in general, and that was by Chief Prisco. I was a sergeant for approximately 9 years, and at that time, Chief Michael Lynch promoted me to lieutenant and gave me broader administrative duties in addition to training. And then for 5 years, I was a lieutenant. As a lieutenant, I went to the FBI National Academy down in Quantico, Virginia. And then I became a lieutenant shortly before Chief Lynch retired. And I was put in charge of, besides administration, I was the public information officer, I was the captain in charge of traffic and safety, the detective bureau, and the Office of Professional Standards. So I had a lot of responsibilities. And then we went through the 3 public safety directors. The first one was Mark Dorsey, a retired inspector from the Philadelphia Police Department, he was an outstanding leader. He was really, really top-notch. And then we went through 2 others, who weren't as good. And in fact, the last one, they paid his last 8 or 9 months' salary to stay home while they made me chief of police. And the rest is history. Back then, Lakewood it was a lot rougher town. We had quite a few bars in town. In fact, one of my jobs as a foot patrolman was to babysit the bar at Main Street and Clifton Avenue, which would stay open until 2, 3 in the morning, and we'd be there standing on the corner because there was fights and sometimes gunfire almost every weekend. George's Bar, and it was a lot tougher place. Not that it's any picnic today. We still have crime in Lakewood, but not the same as it was 35 years ago. So definitely it's changed. The nature of the crimes have changed. Drug dealing. There was a lot more drugs in town. There still are drugs in town, but it's predominantly among the gangs in Lakewood, and that does spur violence on occasion, whether people trying to rip each other off or encroaching on each other's territory, and the drugs are responsible for crime too. Robberies and burglaries for addicts trying to feed their habit. I think the worst times in my career, especially as chief, was the death of 2 of my police officers. Bill Nietzsche Pressler, that occurred 6 months after I became chief, and also the murder of Officer Chris Matlos those hit me particularly hard. You know, the police officers, you think of everybody as a brother or sister officer, and you know, we're a family, and when you have an officer who dies in the line of duty, it's hard to take. I remember feeling upset is an understatement. I know we had counseling for all the officers from a professional psychologist who came in, and I spoke to him in private because I had a lot of trouble getting past that. But you know, given time, I did, and you know, you have to accept it and keep going on. But yeah, as the chief, you know, you have to be strong for everybody else. So those were definitely the low points of my career. The shooting on Mackenzie Court was another one where we had multiple officers injured. You know, John Wilson, you know, lost an eye there, and you know, he was a great officer, and I was very sorry to see him go. Jason DeFoot, another outstanding officer who got severely injured with a neck injury and ended up going out on a disability as well. So those were sort of low times in my career. The high times, I really look back on my outreach that I've done to the various communities in Lakewood. You know, the Orthodox community, which is by far the largest community in Lakewood. You know, I would go to a lot of the events, whether it be a Hashna Sefer Torah, on Purim, going around to various events. Those were joyous times. Those I really enjoyed doing those type of things. So overall, it's been such an interesting career because just the very nature of Lakewood. A lot of chiefs of police, a lot of police officers now are retiring in their late 40s or early 50s. You know, to me, I've just loved this job so much because I found it so interesting, working with, you know, all the various ethnicities and races and religions in Lakewood. I would keep doing it a lot longer if I could. I guess the scariest moments would be some of the arrests I made early on in my career. Back then, some pursuits as well. The pursuits weren't regulated by Attorney General guidelines like they are now. And I remember some particularly hairy pursuits where, you know, you would be going at dramatic speeds, which I would prohibit an officer from doing now. But of course, you know, the township had only 30,000 people. We have at least quadrupled that now. I remember my first felony arrest. I was on foot patrol generally, but this one evening I was assigned on overtime as motorized patrol, and there was an aggravated assault where an Orthodox Jewish person was assaulted, and they stole the religious artifacts he was carrying, and as it turns out, it was a relative. The individual's name was Burstein, and he's actually related to Chaplain Burstein. And I was able to make the arrest of the individual and the woman that he was with that assaulted him, and we recovered the religious belongings that he had with him. So that was like my first felony arrest in Lakewood, and I felt really good that I was able to help that individual and recover his property and arrest the people for aggravated assault. I've never had to shoot anybody. I've never had a gun pull on me, but I've had individuals with knives many times. Draw my weapon, point it at people, yes. Thankfully, I've never had to discharge my weapon. I've found that one of your biggest assets is your mouth, you know, to be able to talk to people. And a lot of times, just through talking to people, you can de-escalate things to the point where, you know, you don't have a physical confrontation. So. No, when I first joined, we had probably about 80 people in the police department. I never expected Lakewood to have the growth rate that it did. You know, I've lived in Lakewood. I've owned a house in Lakewood since 1987, and like I said, I don't think anybody could have predicted the growth in Lakewood. You know, and it's all spurred by you know, Medrus, which is one of the crown jewels, I guess, in the Orthodox religion, and all the accompanied businesses to support the faculty and the staff and the students graduate and want to stay in Lakewood because it's a beautiful place to live. I mean, I don't want to live anywhere else. I don't want to move out of Lakewood. Wow. Right now, we have 125 officers, and we're understaffed. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Tom's River has, I believe, close to around 160 officers and probably 20,000 less people. If you look at the projections that by the year 2030, we're going to have another 100,000 people in Lakewood. It's hard for me to wrap my head around that because the infrastructure in Lakewood is not designed to handle the population we have now. So the police department has to keep up with that growth. I mean, the national average is 2 officers per 1,000. By that figure, we should have 240 officers. Now, you know, obviously, you know, that would be a heavy tax burden for the taxpayers, and I'm one of the biggest taxpayers in Lakewood. But I see our police department increasing dramatically to keep up with the needs of the population. Now, the crime rate in Lakewood is not bad. It's actually pretty good. You know, we're a city, but you know, everybody thinks, well, the police, all they do is fight crime, and that's far from the truth. We're really a service organization. You know, maybe 15–20% of our time, which is even a high at that, is spent fighting crime. The rest is provide services to the community. And as chief, I've always stressed the philosophy of community policing and doing whatever we can to help all the communities in Lakewood. And we've received heat from that from outside of Lakewood, but I don't really care. This is my town, and you know, I think the police department should be responsive to the needs of the community. Well, I'm not leaving the community. You know, I've lived in Lakewood for a long time. I've been a resident of Lakewood for 40 years. What I'll miss is the officers, my daily interactions with them, my daily interactions with the other people who would come into my office, whether it be the civilians, the police officers, the business owners. Like I said, I'll still be in Lakewood. I'll still be the emergency management coordinator, so I'll still be involved in local government. You know, I have been offered a position in the Lakewood community that I'm also considering, and so I'll still be around. I'll still be involved. You know, I'm not one to sit at home and, you know, I love my wife, but I don't think she wants me home all the time either. It's like, get out and do something. I think there's been a learning curve, not only for the police officers, but for the residents of Lakewood too. You know, I know with some of the old timers, you know, there's this feeling of being in Gullis, you know, and for maybe some of the newcomers, you know, that they have to get the understanding that Dina di Malchusa Dina. You know, I mean, it goes both ways. When I first became chief, there was a lot of negative feelings toward the police officers for heavy-handed enforcement, and you know, we've tried to temper that and make the officers more community-minded. But on the other hand, we have to make the residents cognizant of the fact that, hey, we have laws, we have motor vehicle laws, and they're there for your protection, for your safety, whether it be cell phone violations or, you know, blowing through stop signs and, you know, parking on sidewalks. You know, I don't want this town to become, you know, another Brooklyn. You know, I want, you know, everybody to, you know, civility, you know, to be courteous, to drive courteously, because that enhances everybody's safety, especially with the amount of traffic we have in town. You know, slow down a little bit, respect the laws, and we have a beautiful community, and we want everybody to be safe. I'm looking forward to stepping it down a notch. I mean, until recently, I would not uncommonly put in, 60-hour work weeks. And there is a lot of stress in this job, you try to mitigate that through your friends and your family and extracurricular activities, I'm looking forward to going to the gym more, and maybe have a little more of downtime and relaxing. But that being said, I still look forward to being involved in the community and helping my community however I can.